I love monsters. I always have. Little monsters, medium monsters, big monsters, you name it. And I want to talk about them more. So to start, in this video, we are going to focus on a few little monsters that you might want to put in your game. And technically one kind of big monster, but it's little at heart. This adorable deviant is called a Boggle. They're from the Feywild and they're drawn to lonely people, which might sound nice for the lonely people at first, until you learn more about the Boggle. You see, they're pranksters. They like breaking dishes, startling the cows, or hiding your baby in the attic, all of which they're quite competent at because of their nifty little ability, Dimensional Rift. It allows them to open spatial rifts in any opening or doorway that they can teleport between, sort of like having a built-in portal gun, except only they can use the portals and they can shoot those portals behind walls. They also secrete a slime, much like the lamprey, that they can make either very sticky or very slippery, to help them be extra annoying or to help them avoid people that are upset with them for being extra annoying. They're generally more interested in mischief than mayhem, but if they encounter a particularly strong-willed and deviant character, they can be convinced into service. They are also very weak. So an encounter with these monsters should probably not be built as a combat encounter so much as a chase scene. Perhaps as the heroes are on their way back from an adventure to return the ancient crown to the king, they decide to rest at a local tavern. But unbeknownst to them, a thief has hired a Boggle to sneak into their room to steal the crown for his own evil machinations. Or money. This next monster comes with its own super creepy puzzle mechanics built right in. The Skulk. If someone gets lost in the Shadowfell, it can sort of change them. Sometimes it turns them into a Skulk. While they still maintain a physical presence, they leave no tracks, so they are untraceable, and they are invisible almost all of the time. There are, however, a few ways you can see them. You can see their reflection in reflective surfaces, children under the age of 10 can see them, and they can be seen in the light of a candle that is made from the fat rendered from an unknown corpse. If you know the corpse, doesn't work. Has to be somebody you don't know. And yeah, people do rituals to summon these things out of the Shadowfell to do their bidding for 30 days, so, you know, adventure. If you want to include a Skulk in your story, you could have the adventurers encounter a child who has an imaginary best friend that doesn't have a face. Perhaps a genteel old woman who's definitely not a hag in disguise could offer them a candle to guide their way. Don't worry about how it works or where it comes from. She totally doesn't have any ulterior motives. Once the adventurers figure out how to see the Skulk, it becomes very easy to dispatch. The real fun of this monster is not the big climactic fight scene. It's the journey and the investigation and the mystery and the seemingly insurmountable odds that become quite surmountable if you are able to put the clues together. This is a Carrionette, and it is what it looks like it is. It's a creepy little doll. When it's not moving, it's indistinguishable from any other creepy little doll. But here's where everything gets weird. If it pokes you with that little needle, it can curse you. And when you're cursed, it can switch bodies with you. It immediately takes control of your body. You go unconscious for 1 hour, and then wake up in its body an hour later. After you wake up as a little doll, there's some good news and some bad news. The good news is all you need to get your body back is to find your body and poke you with that needle again. The bad news is that if you die while you are in the doll, you die for real. Now, imagine if this happens to the whole party. They wake up an hour later, trapped in the bodies of dolls. And the only way to get their bodies back is to chase down the wagon that's leaving town. And along the way, they must contend with ferocious rats and dangerous owls and other creatures that normally wouldn't be a big deal, but if you were trapped in a doll, would be a pretty big deal. In a world where heroes must battle dragons and demons, creating the opportunity to give that same peril to battling canaries and house cats is going to be very fun. This next monster is excellent at presenting your players with an interesting choice. It's called a Chuul. It's got big claws, little tentacles it can paralyze you with, but it can also detect magic, which means aside from being a somewhat formidable foe in its own right, it also makes an excellent guard dog specifically against adventurers that might be carrying a bunch of magic items on them. And while they're not technically small, when compared to the eldritch abominations they usually guard, they're pretty small. Now, as a game master, you might be inclined to use this as a way to trick your players, but I would encourage you to let them seal their own fate. let them learn about these creatures. Because if the players know a Chuul is around, they have to decide, are we going in fully loaded with all of our stuff, or do we leave our magic items behind so that we might get by secretly? This is such a short list of monsters that I'm making right now, but I wanted to start with a shorter one just to see if you guys like it, because I like this kind of stuff, and if you do too, that's pretty cool. Oh, also, consider subscribing if you haven't already. I never ask people to, and I'm supposed to do that. And I know we said we weren't going to do any big monsters, but why don't we just throw in one of the biggest monsters? Because it's cool. This, my dear friends, is the Elder Tempest. It is the pinnacle of the element of air and a powerful creature. Here's just a couple fun things about it. This creature is permanently at the center of miles and miles of violent thunderstorms. This monster used to have one of the craziest abilities I've ever seen. And when Dungeons & Dragons came out with a new book, they nerfed it, so I'm gonna pretend that the new version doesn't exist and just talk about the cool version in all of its glory. The Elder Tempest has an ability where it can blast a gale of wind that knocks creatures back from up to 1 mile away. As far as I know, this is the longest range ability officially in D&D, but if you're not playing D&D and you just want to use this monster, just think this thing can hit somebody across a storm. You could build an entire encounter not around fighting this monster, just figuring out how to get to it. In the new version of this monster, the range is like 300 feet, which is, again, totally reasonable and totally lame. So I'd say, nah, it's a mile. This is an Elder Tempest. It's not a baby Tempest. I'm looking at the list of monsters that I wanted to talk about, and I've talked about less than a third of them. So I think we're gonna have to make another one of these videos, probably. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, let me know, and give it a like, give me a subscribe, do a little dance, and, you know, leave a goofy comment. Love you, bye.